one of the most important factors in the whole process of designing a soundscape is music, something which most of you are waiting for. A lot of questions in music, particularly. Now, in my professional career, most of it has been recording songs and recording music for many films like Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam, right up to Devdas. Music albums like Duba Duba by Silk Route, Apke Sawan, by Shantanu Moitra and Shubha Mudgal. So I have recorded a lot of songs, a lot of music in my career. Now, one of the questions was how important is knowing music as a sound designer? Well, though I have not studied music, but music is something that you just know. And like we used to fool around with the guitars and stuff like that in our school and college days. So, music is something which is an integral part of an individual. So, a lot of people are just born with it. They understand sur, tal, tempo. For those who don't understand music, it is very important to understand or make an attempt to study music or listen to various genres of music. Music is, there are various types of music. There are Hindustani classical rag based music. There is the contemporary Bollywood kind of music. There is indie pop music, independent music that a lot of bands are, you know, creating nowadays. This is in our Indian scenario. Then you have Western music, Western classical music, jazz, rock, pop, funk, and various kinds of metal. So there are various genres of music. At least you have to know these genres of music. If you are working as a sound designer, it is very essential that you know what music, what is the genre of music, what is the type of music, because that is an integral part of any particular story. Depending on the region that it is based on. Folk music, that is another rich source of music. You have to understand, because India is a very rich source of folk music. So there's folk music from Punjab, from Bengal, from Orissa, from the south, from the hilly regions in the north. So it's very diverse and it has an automatic connect. And a lot of films, a lot of popular film songs were based on folk music. So I would recommend you to understand folk music, because that is something which communicates, which has a tremendous power of communication. Rajasthani folk. I almost forgot about one of the richest folk bases in the country is Rajasthan. So you have to understand the genre of music. You have to understand what genre of music is. You have to understand music. You have to, if you are a musician, it will definitely help you in creating design. So whenever you're laying a track, like when I am laying tracks, it is almost like when you're creating a soundscape, when you're doing sound design, it is like doing music production for a song or arrangement of music in a particular song. So when a song is composed, then you need to, apart from the melody that the singer is going to sing, it is being accompanied by a lot of instruments. Now, what are these instruments playing? These instruments are accompanying the melody. Either it's a vocal melody or it's a instrumental melody like a flute or a sitar, or something which has to, which you need accompaniment for. Percussions, the kind of percussions that you're going to use. So we have sequences of notes, which in Hindustani you call them ragas. So a raga has ragas have various combinations of notes that defines a particular raga. A raga has a set of, a particular raga will have a particular set of notes. So, and in Western music, we accompany this melody with a set of notes called chords. So there is a, like if you're composing something in the C scale, then you are probably having chords like C, F, G. These are accompanying chords which come in the C scale. So like that, there are various scales, and you have to understand that the basic scale of that particular music. Because when you're putting sound design, sometimes I even play around with the tone of the sound, which sometimes falls in scale with the music. Sometimes very consciously I move away from the scale and make it sound like, suppose there's a shank that is playing, which is not playing in a particular scale, but then it is there as an effect. It stands out from the music in a little bit. So it depends on how you design your sound. So music is also another element, if not the most important part of the film. It is a distinct part of the film. You don't have to have music throughout any particular scene. Music can come in. It gives a certain kind of an emotion to a particular scene. Now, in a warlike situation, when you have gunfire, when you're having a firefight and things like that, when in Uri, for example, when the first time the terrorist was tackled by the hero. So when they were having a kind of a fight, there was a music that was creeping in, and that music is to bind. The music is to bind emotionally. The sense of victory after he has won, after he's killed that particular terrorist, the kind of victorious euphoria that comes in. That is the emotional high that you get, and that is where music is important. So it punctuates emotion. It punctuates whether it's a very sad sequence or a happy sequence or a nostalgic sequence. Like, there will be a certain song which will take you back in memory, and it'll take you back to your childhood. That in your childhood, this particular song your mother or your father used to sing, and it suddenly takes you back. So music has a recall value. It is very rich in terms of a nostalgic element. So it depends. It's very crucial as to how you would compose music for a particular scene. They say, like, the most important thing that a composer should understand is when not to put music. So one of the questions was how my interaction with the composer. I don't compose music. I work around a composition that is given to me. Now, for me, if you have given a kind of a composition, if there is a particular composition that has been created for this particular scene, it is my job to make sure that that composition comes in the right place. Though the musician punctuates the changeovers, there are certain places and certain movements which are highlighted by his music, which he has done. But I have to take it a little further, because there are other elements like effects and dialogues and all that also coming in. So my treatment of music is going to be more film-based than the music itself. So working on the music with the composer, like when I'm doing a design and when he's composing the background score for this, I make it a point to sit with him because I need to play him the design. He has to understand what my sound design is, and I have to understand what his composition is. So it is a perfect balance between the two. But we have to make sure that we don't clash with each other. Now, how does that clash happen? For example, if there is an action scene, like if there are horses running, if there is a fight sequence in a period film, like, you have horses, you have swords, you have people screaming, you have elephants, you have shields and knives and daggers and those kind of things happening. So there's a lot of clutter and the screaming of the horses, the screaming of men. So in that sort of a situation, what is the kind of music that you would compose for it, so that your music also stands out and the dynamics of the effects are also not affected? So the music in those particular scenes should be less percussive. You can't have things like drums going dun 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 right in the middle of a war scene or an action particular scene. Then what happens is you can neither hear the music clearly nor can you hear the effects clearly. So you have to design your music in such a way while you're composing the music that it blends together with the action that is there. Then again, when there is a highly emotional quotient or there's a very romantic kind of a scene, then I can pull down the effects and almost make the effects vanish and just have music over there to flourish and to punctuate that particular scene. So there have to be these sort of dynamics that are constantly playing. And the effects give you the dynamics, the music gives you the emotional content. So this is how we play hide and seek with each other, so that we can complement each other. This is very important. Somebody asked me about the time signature of how do you choose a time signature if you're composing music, or if you're choosing what is the kind of tempo that you would choose. Now, if you see the sequence in cuts, usually when editors edit a film, they have a loose kind of a temp track, we call it a temp track or a temporary music track, that they cut a particular scene to. Now, this track is replaced by a fresh music track. So what happens is the editor gets a kind of a tempo. So whether he's going to play at 120 bars per minute, or whether he's going to play at 110, or whether it's going to be a slow tempo, whether it's going to be a fast tempo, whether it's a chase sequence will have a faster tempo. So this tempo is decided by the composer. He sees that, okay, if I choose this particular tempo, then the shot changes over here in this particular beat, and then in the next beat this other thing action happens, then in another place this sort of an so there is a kind of a tempo mapping that is done with every sequence. Now once the tempo mapping is done, then the kind of music that you compose for that will define your time signature, in the sense whether it is in a 3/4 kind of a thing, whether it is a 4/4 kind of a thing, whether it is a 6/8 time signature. So these are decisions that are usually taken by the composer and the music producer. And also at times what happens is, then there are things like, suppose the blade of the chopper in Uri was rotating at a particular speed or at a particular tempo. Now I wanted the composer to compose the music in keeping that tempo of the chopper in mind. So then he made a music around it, which complemented each other. So there are these kind of things that are constantly playing. In Madras Cafe, I gave the sound design to the composer, Shantanu Moitra, and I asked him to. So he heard my design and he composed the music around that particular design. He kept long electric violin notes in certain scenes in Madras Cafe, which did not interfere with the war scenes or with the busy clutter that was going on in the effects. So you have to intelligently balance it out. From the composer's point of view, he has to have a good understanding of what kind of design would play along this side. Then Shashwat has done the music for, Shashwat Sachdev has done the music for Uri. The kind of brass and strings that he has used was phenomenal. He had gone to Austria to record these. He's come back with a fantastic composition. So whenever, if you see the kind of music that he's given, that he's composed for, say, the helicopter scene, when, Jaskirat comes with the chopper and starts opening fire on the enemy aircraft, then there was a certain music that pumps in, and that immediately the audience gets a high over there. So that has driven the emotion over there at that particular sequence. So there are a lot of things, like it has to be a little staid and muffled and mellow behind action scenes, and whenever it needs to flourish, it needs to flourish. So when you have muted drum loops, like muted drum loops and stuff like that playing behind action scenes, then you have the pulse of the music also going along with the dynamics of the effects of gunshots and the fight sequences and stuff like that. So it is important to understand what kind of music you should give. Now, another thing that you should understand is, do not give a popular tune as a background score for any particular scene. Now, why do not give? Because people will get distracted. Suppose you start playing a popular Kishore Kumar song behind a particular scene. People will automatically start connecting with that film or that particular song that Kishore Kumar has sung in. Now, this is something, unless you deliberately want to do that this guy is a Kishore Kumar fan and he always listens to Kishore Kumar, or his life is influenced by a singer like Kishore Kumar, then you are using songs of Kishore Kumar, then it makes sense. Then there is a connection. But suddenly at a random place where the guy is just doing something and there's a Kishore Kumar song playing, there should be a reason for putting that song. It is just not any random music, random popular music that you will put over there. Then you're drawing attention to that particular music. So the music should complement the scene and not distract you from that. So it is very important, if you can't just have the music of Hotel California playing behind a particular scene. Then people will forget the film and they'll concentrate on Hotel California, and they will try and find a connection between why you gave that sort of a music for this film. So you have to understand the kind of music that you would want to give in this. That is the role of music in general. And songs, everybody knows what songs are. My treatment of songs in music, in films, the way I mix the songs is much more cinematic than a typical album mix. Mixing a song for an album, for an audio, is slightly different. Like, you would mix it the way you would mix a song. But for a film, what happens is there are certain things that you need to highlight in that song with respect to the visual. Like, suppose there's a close-up of a trumpet that is playing, or a drum roll that is happening, then you have to enhance that, you have to raise the volume of that drum roll or the trumpet solo at that particular point, because it is suddenly coming on screen. But if you switch off the visual, that will sound like a funny mix. It'll not sound like a right mix. But with visual, it will sound right. Because then what happens is, when you're showing a close-up of a trumpet, but then you can't really hear the trumpet, then that does not make any sense. So mixing a song for a film depends on the visual and the situation, on what kind of a scene that is playing, and how the song is designed. For the particular song is designed visually with respect to the drama that is happening. So song mixing is slightly different in films, because the mix becomes more cinematic rather than strictly musical. Now comes a whole bunch of questions, mostly from the technical side.